Long ago, in the heart of Mesopotamia, there stood a kingdom of wealth and power, the kingdom of Babylon, a land where people lived under the rule of one of the most arrogant kings in history, Nimrod. His name was feared, his wealth was endless, and his rule was absolute. But there was something about Nimrod that made him different from other kings. He did not just rule over his people. He claimed to be a god. Yes, Nimrod thought he was not just a king, but a divine being. He declared himself the one who controlled life and death. He believed no power in the universe was greater than his own. His arrogance knew no bounds. Day after day, he would sit on his golden throne, surrounded by loyal followers who worshipped him. They bowed before him, called him their god, and followed his every command without question. But then, one man changed everything. This man was Prophet Ibrahim, upon him be peace. He was different from the people of Babylon. He did not bow to Nimrod. He did not fear the king's wrath. He did not believe in the false gods that the people worshipped. Instead, he stood firm in his faith in Allah, the one and only God. Ibrahim openly called the people to leave their idols, abandon their false beliefs, and worship Allah alone. When Nimrod heard about this, he was furious. How dare someone challenge his power? How dare someone tell the people that he was not their god? Nimrod called Ibrahim alayhis salam to his court. He wanted to prove his power. He wanted to show that he controlled the world. And so, the most famous debate in history began. Nimrod, sitting on his throne, looked at Ibrahim alayhis salam and said, "Who is this God you speak of? I am the one who gives life and death." To prove his point, he ordered his guards to bring two prisoners before him. One was sentenced to death. The other was to be set free. Nimrod smirked and said, "Look, I gave one life, and I took the others. I control life and death." But Prophet Ibrahim alayhis salam was calm. He did not argue with foolish words. Instead, he replied with wisdom, "Allah makes the sun rise from the east. If you are truly a god, then make it rise from the west." Nimrod was stunned. For the first time in his life, he had no answer. His arrogance had been shattered by a single sentence. He looked around at his court, at his advisors, at his guards, but no one could help him. The people whispered among themselves. Had Nimrod truly lost the debate? Was he really powerless? But Nimrod refused to admit defeat. His heart was filled with arrogance. Instead of accepting the truth, he became even angrier. And that's when he made the most foolish decision of his life. He decided to wage war against Allah. Nimrod, still enraged from his defeat, gathered his advisors. He told them, "If Ibrahim's God controls the world, then I will fight him. I will show the people that I am stronger." His advisors, blinded by their loyalty, agreed. They told him that he must prove his might. And so, Nimrod prepared for war. But how do you fight Allah? Nimrod believed that if he could reach the heavens, he could challenge Allah directly. And so he ordered his men to build a massive tower, one so high that it would reach the sky. Day and night, thousands of workers labored, stacking bricks upon bricks, raising the tower higher and higher. Nimrod stood at the top, looking up, imagining himself ruling the heavens. He laughed, thinking, "Soon, I will be the god of both the earth and the sky." But deep down, something was missing. The tower was not enough. He needed another way to reach the heavens. Then, he came up with a bizarre plan. Nimrod ordered his men to build a special chariot. But this was no ordinary chariot. It was one that would fly. He gathered 4 giant eagles. These birds were strong, powerful, and capable of lifting heavy weights. For days, Nimrod starved the eagles, making them desperate for food. Then, he placed pieces of meat above them, just out of reach. And then, he let them fly. The hungry eagles flapped their wings with all their strength. They lifted the chariot into the sky, carrying Nimrod with them. Higher and higher they went. The people of Babylon looked up in awe. Nimrod laughed. He felt like he was ascending to the heavens. He thought he had finally become a god. But then, something happened. The sky darkened. The wind howled. The birds, confused and exhausted, lost control. Nimrod's chariot began to shake violently. The eagles, unable to hold on, flapped desperately. And then, Nimrod fell. The arrogant king who thought he could challenge Allah came crashing down to the earth. His body hit the ground with a thud, his bones shattered, his pride was destroyed. But his punishment was not over. Allah was not done with him yet. Nimrod, once the mighty ruler of Babylon, now lay in his palace, broken and humiliated. But the worst was yet to come. Allah sent against him the smallest of his creations, a tiny mosquito. This tiny insect entered Nimrod's nose and made its way into his brain. And then it began to torment him. Day and night, Nimrod suffered. The pain was unbearable. It felt as if his head would explode. He screamed, he begged, but nothing helped. He ordered his servants to strike his head with hammers, just to ease the pain. And in this miserable state, he died. The king who thought he could fight Allah was defeated. Not by an army, not by a warrior, but by a tiny insect. His tower? Destroyed. His kingdom? Lost. His pride? Shattered. This is the fate of those who challenge Allah. Arrogance leads to destruction. Humility before Allah brings honor. Let this be a lesson for us all. No matter how powerful someone becomes, no one can stand against the will of Allah. Nimrod's story did not end with his fall from the sky. His downfall became a warning, a lesson that echoed through the ages. But what happened next? How did his people react? What was the fate of Babylon after its arrogant king met his miserable end? The news of Nimrod's failure spread like wildfire. The people of Babylon who once bowed before him now saw him as nothing more than a fool. The king who claimed to be a god had been humiliated. His attempt to reach the heavens had turned into his greatest shame. But that was not all. His tower, the grand structure built to challenge Allah, stood half-finished. The people looked at it, confused and uncertain. Was Nimrod really the god he claimed to be? If he was so powerful, why couldn't he even control his own fate? Doubt began to spread. Whispers filled the city. Some people started to remember the words of Prophet Ibrahim alayhis salam. They recalled the debate, the moment when Nimrod was left speechless. They remembered how Ibrahim alayhis salam had spoken about one true God, the creator of the heavens and the earth. Could it be that he was right? With Nimrod defeated, his kingdom began to fall apart. His soldiers, once loyal, now abandoned him. His advisors, who once praised him, now turned their backs on him. The great kingdom of Babylon, once ruled with arrogance and pride, became weaker and weaker. And then, Allah's final punishment arrived. A powerful plague struck Babylon. The people, once strong and proud, became sick and helpless. Their wealth, their power, none of it could save them. The people who once worshipped Nimrod now prayed for mercy. And as for Nimrod himself, he spent his final days in unimaginable pain. The mosquito inside his brain continued to torment him. Day and night he screamed in agony. His servants had to beat his head with sticks just to provide him with a moment of relief. But nothing worked. No medicine, no wealth, no power. Nothing could save him. And in this miserable state, he died. The king who thought he could challenge Allah was defeated. Not by an army, not by a mighty warrior, but by a tiny insect. What can we learn from Nimrod's story? The story of Nimrod is not just a tale from history. It is a lesson for all of us. Nimrod had everything: wealth, power, and control. But his arrogance led to his downfall. He refused to accept the truth, and in the end, he was destroyed. Nimrod thought he could fight Allah. He built towers, flew into the sky, and claimed to control life and death. But in the end, he was defeated by something as small as a mosquito. Prophet Ibrahim alayhis salam stood alone against Nimrod. But he did not fear him. He knew that Allah is the true king. His faith gave him strength, and in the end, he was victorious. Even today, the ruins of Babylon stand as a silent reminder of what happens when arrogance goes too far. Nimrod's kingdom, once mighty, is nothing but dust. His name is remembered not for greatness, but for failure. But Ibrahim alayhis salam, his name lives on. His message spread across the world. His faith in Allah made him one of the greatest men in history. And this is the reality of life. The arrogant will fall, but the humble will rise. May Allah protect us from arrogance and guide us on the path of truth.